Jimmie Foxx, be mindful, there at the club, and then they would roll and sell. Treated like ruins when we got there. Grades and streets. Photographs we have.
One. Now you got 25. He's got about 15. He's got to pack up.
Hi, I'm Mark Milliken. I became interested in Jimmie Foxx when I was a teenager back in the 60s. He was a power hitter from way back when with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and I became interested in him even in the 60s because he was a baseball Hall of Famer, a home run hitter, and I wondered what was his life like when he was growing up, and I wanted to know more about Jimmie. Well, fast forward 23 years or so later, and I called the Hall of Fame and asked them had any book been done on Jimmie Foxx yet, and they said no, there hasn't, and I said, well, good, because I want to write a biography about Jimmie Foxx. So I came to Sudlersville in January of 1990, and I met Barbara Everett, the librarian here, and she started me on the right track, and everybody here on the Eastern Shore that I met was really helpful, and it really paved the way for me to get a book done about Jimmie Foxx. This is Nancy Foxx Canaday. This is Jimmie Foxx's daughter, all the way from, I think, Sumterville, Florida. She came all the way up for this 100th anniversary celebration for Jimmie Foxx, and I'll let her say a few things.
Well, it's just wonderful to be here. It's a great tribute to Daddy, and I know he'd be thrilled. And all the people up here are so nice.
I'm from Chesapeake Beach, Maryland. I grew up in Baltimore County, but most recently I'm living in Chesapeake Beach, Maryland, and I work full-time in fisheries with the federal government, but this is my part-time life here, or my avocation or whatever, and I've really enjoyed writing the book on Jimmie Foxx and the other one on the 66 Orioles.
That's great. So you've learned a great deal, I'm sure, about Jimmie Foxx.
I really have, and I feel like this area here and him and a lot of things have become a big part of my life. I mean, when you research somebody's life like I have and put that much time and effort into it and meet as many people as I have here on the Eastern Shore, it changes you, and it was a good change, because instead of just watching the bad things on the news, the bad news on the news, you start getting a feeling sometimes that you're a little worried about where we're heading as a group, all of us, you know, but I feel a lot better about our society knowing how many nice people are out there in the real world and how helpful they can be.
Do you have any interesting stories that you learned throughout about Jimmie? Do you have anything you want to share that you learned about Jimmie while you were doing the research?
I'll just tell you one bad dream I had after I started doing this work on Jimmie Foxx. I had seen Jimmie's father's picture at the library there, so I knew what Dell looked like. And I started researching the book to the point where I saw different versions of a story. And I started sweating it out, in a sense, trying to figure out what's the right version of how Home Run Baker found Jimmie Foxx. That's an example. And as you go through any kind of subject like this, you'll find there are several versions to a lot of the stories, and you may never know the real truth of which one was the right one. So you have to figure out as best you can what it is and go with it and explain why. But anyway, after researching some of this a short while and seeing Del Fox's photo over here and sweating out which one's the right version, I had a dream a couple nights later after being over here, and I'm in the library again in the dream, and Del's tapping on my shoulder and saying, "That's not right." Shaking his head, and he looks over, "That's not right either." And pointing and pointing, and it was to the point where nothing was right, you know, and I'm sweating it out, waking up in real life in a cold sweat, and I'm thinking, this project's getting to me a little bit, I think, you know. So that's one memory I have.
How about you, Nancy? You must have some memories. Do you have any memories you want to share, or a memory you want to share?
Well, memories, I don't know where to start. I'm very emotional today. I know it. And after the long trip, I'm just emotional today. But this is an authentic book. It's got so many truths in it, and that's what I like seeing portrayed about Daddy. There's been a lot of stuff written that wasn't very nice, but this is an authentic book, very well written, and I thank Mark for that.
Well, thank you, Nancy, but I'd like to ask Nancy one question. How about, can you tell them a little bit about when you were a Batgirl for the Fort Wayne Daisies?
I was hot stuff then. No, I was about 11. I was 11 years old, and I was a bat girl. I wish I had the uniform still. But that was thrilling to be in there. Those girls played good hard ball. People don't realize nowadays what great baseball they play. But it was really fun out there with them. And I keep in touch with a few of the girls, but a lot of them have gone on.
Did you play ball yourself?
No, I was just the bat girl.
Okay.
Jimmie Foxx was the manager of that team, the 1952 Fort Wayne Daisies, and Nancy was the Batgirl. And the movie A League of Our Own supposedly was based in part on that fact and just the whole setup. But they got the character wrong. Tom Hanks was nothing like Jimmie Foxx.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this day as we celebrate the centennial birthday of Double X. Thank you for this opportunity to fellowship with his family, distinguished guests, and friends. Grant each of us a safe journey home this afternoon. Bless his food, our nourishment, and us to thy service. Amen.
Let's eat. How about if we start right here on this table? Mr. Robert Warrington. Mr. Warrington, Bob Warrington is a member of the Philadelphia A's Historical Society and has been an absolutely tremendous help to the Betterment Club in bringing this event to its fruition today. Mr. Warrington is going to be our Master of Ceremonies, so I'm going to pass this on to him. Ready, Bob?
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. As I think all of you are aware, as part of today's festivities, we have a Jimmie Foxx trivia contest. The prize, for those who get the answers correct, is one of the Jimmie Foxx figurines. And we have several of them to give out, and we're going to spread the contest over these proceedings. We'll do a few now, a few later on, and a few near the end. These figurines, I think you'll all agree, are very handsome. They have a special price today of only $10, and I think there are only a handful left, Ernie?
That's right.
Like 12 or 20? Less than that left. And they normally retail for $24.95 if you try to buy these from Heartland through Sports Collectors Digest or some other medium. So a terrific deal, virtually sold out, but we do have some to give away. I've compiled some trivia questions about Jimmie Foxx's career. Now, Mark Milliken cannot play because I took several of the questions, most of the questions from his book. So that doesn't count. First question. Again, raise your hand if you think you know the answer. In 1924, Jimmie Foxx played in the Class D Eastern Shore League. He played for the Easton Club. What was the nickname of that club? They were called the Easton what?
Farmers.
That is exactly correct, the Easton Farmers. On May 27, 1925, Jimmie Foxx notched his first major league hit, a double, in a game that matched the Athletics against the Washington Senators. What was the name of the pitcher off which Jimmie Foxx got his first big league hit? May 27, 1925.
I'm going to guess Walter Johnson.
That is incorrect.
Wood.
No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect.
Oh, Whitehill.
No, I'm sorry. The answer is Sylvanus Gregg, G-R-E-G-G. To which major league team did Easton Farmers manager Frank Baker first offer Jimmie Foxx to sign as a player? Which was the first team he offered?
New York Yankees.
That is correct, the Yankees. Elliot. The Yankees were in Philadelphia for a series with the Athletics at Shibe Park. Baker, of course, played with the Yankees after he played with the Athletics. And Yankees manager Miller Huggins had no interest in Baker's what he called his high school phenomenon. But think if he had signed Foxx, you'd have a lineup that would have included Ruth, Gehrig, Foxx, Musial, and Combs. Heck of a lineup. When Miller Huggins turned him down, Frank Baker just walked across the field to the athletics dugout and talked with Connie Mack. Here's a real good one. What uniform number did Jimmie Foxx wear when he played for the Philadelphia Phillies in 1945? No, I'm sorry, 7 is incorrect. The answer is 24. One more, we'll try another one. We're trying to give away 3 of these. The questions get easier, believe me, as we go on. In 1951, Jimmie Foxx was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was one of 2 players elected to the Hall that year. Who was the other player? No, you can't answer. Go ahead. Mellott is correct. We'll be back with more questions. We are very fortunate to have a number of distinguished guests with us here today, and I would like to recognize them at this time. First on the list, and appropriately so, is Jimmie Foxx's #1 fan, a man who is steeped in the legend of Jimmie Foxx lore, and deservedly so. I'm particularly pleased to recognize Mr. Gil Dunn. We're done for now. Take it with you. Okay, can I take it with you?
Now watch this.
Okay.
Boy, I hope this is working. Or it may be best that it's not working. Anyway, I'm not too good, I'm warning you, I'm not too good at being a public speaker. But I happen to remember when I was a freshman in school and taking the class public speaking, and the teacher reminded me, you have to have audience control. I will repeat that. You have to have audience control. Good. So a couple weeks later, I had to make a speech. And when I was finished with the speech, I walked out and there were 6 people falling asleep. So that was audience control. Now, in conclusion, this has been such a wonderful affair. And I have been following the fortunes of Jimmie Foxx with profound interest for about 70 years. 70 years. And I have never been disappointed. And this affair is consistent with me following the affairs of Jimmie Foxx. It has been wonderful. And I am tickled to death to be here, and I congratulate the Sudlersville Betterment community, and in particular, Loretta Young, for putting on such a nice affair. And thanks for listening.
Mr. Dunn, that's not the first time Loretta's been compared to Loretta Young. Moving on with our distinguished guests list, I would also like to recognize the President of the Society of the American Baseball Research, Mr. Bruce Brown. You heard him at the statue. Make a presentation.
I'm wearing several hats today. I represented the governor's office earlier because they were not able to send somebody today. But I'm also representing the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. They sent me the following that I'd like to read and pass on to the Sudlersville Betterment Committee. Well, first of all, it came with a nice cover letter from the Hall of Fame asking me to do this. because they were not able to send a representative. It says, resolution honoring James Emery Jimmie Foxx. Whereas James Emery Jimmie Foxx was born and raised in on Maryland's Eastern Shore, where he was a multi-sport star at Sudlersville High School, dominating the competition in baseball, basketball, volleyball, track, and field. And whereas James Emery Jimmie Foxx in 1924, in his final scholastic season, led the league with a .552 batting average, while also striking out 18 batters in a single game. And whereas Jimmie Foxx, at the tender age of 16, became a professional ball player when he signed with Easton of the Class D Eastern Shore League, the Farmers. Whereas Jimmie Foxx made his big league debut in 1925, the first of 20 seasons in the major leagues, mainly with the Philadelphia Athletics and Boston Red Sox. And whereas Jimmie Foxx, in his big league career, batted .325, became the second player to accumulate more than 500 home runs with a total of .534, drove in more than 100 runs for 13 consecutive seasons, won 3 Most Valuable Player awards and the Triple Crown in 1933. And whereas Jimmie Foxx joined our national pastime's most exclusive club in 1951 when he was elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, now therefore be it resolved that the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum recognize and celebrates the life and contributions of Jimmie Foxx, and therefore be it further resolved that the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum extends our sincere best wishes to the citizens of Sudlersville and all those who have made contributions to this celebration. I want to add a couple of comments. There are discussions regularly, particularly within the Society for American Baseball Research, on who the greatest ball players ever were. And the names that you hear the most often are Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Ty Cobb, and lately the name of Alex Rodriguez is starting to creep into that. Barry Bonds sometimes is named. And so those players all have made significant contributions, and each one could have a significant argument made for why he was the best ball player of all time. However, Babe Ruth never won consecutive MVPs or an RBI title. Willie Mays never won an RBI title or a Triple Crown. A-Rod, Ted Williams, and Ty Cobb all had personal difficulties with the press, with their hometown fans. None of these applied to Jimmie Foxx. And I'm not going to be so bold as to stand here and tell you that I or Saber believes that Jimmie Foxx is the greatest player of all time, but he's in the picture. He's in the final list of nominees. And I am pleased to represent Saber and the Hall of Fame here honoring his centennial. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Well spoken. We also have representatives here that I would like to recognize from the Eastern Shore Baseball Foundation. You'll stand, please. Eastern Shore Baseball Foundation. And from the Sports Legend Museum in Baltimore, we have Greg Schwallenberg. Greg? It was an outstanding display of material you had in the back room, by the way. And the Philadelphia A's Historical Society has been an integral part of the preparations and planning for today. I'm proud to represent the A's Society here. I'd also like to recognize at this point the general manager of the Ernie Montella of the Philadelphia A's Historical Society and one of the founding members of that society, Mr. Ernie Montella. And Ernie, I believe you have a presentation to make.
Yes. First of all, I also want to recognize other people that came up here with us today. Harry Adams, Stan Harry, Fred Coleman, Tony Ricci, Tom Ricci, Paul Goebel, and Brian Farley. We were founded in 1996. We had $50 in our treasury Today we have 900 members, 44 states, 4 foreign countries, and $50 in our treasury. That's a replica 1928 A's home uniform made especially for this function. There's a little story that goes with it. We loaned that shirt to Connie Mack's great-grandson, who was a congressman in Florida. He used it at a softball game in Washington, D.C., where the politicians play one another. And when he sent it back, he autographed it. And I couldn't have that autograph on the shirt because it wasn't appropriate. If it was the real Connie Mack, it would have stayed on it, I'm sure. And you won't notice it, but it was taken off at the top left. No insult to the congressman, but this was for Jimmie Foxx, and we want it to be that way. The cards at the bottom are authentic, and Loretta, I'm sure you can find someplace in the museum to put that. That's from the Athletics Historical Society.
We have several other individuals we would like to recognize today. Delegate and Mrs. Richard Saucy. Queen Anne County, 36th District. And special person, the sculptor of the Foxx statue that we all admired this morning, Mr. Ken Herlihy. Ken, are you here? And it's a particular treat for me, particular honor to introduce a member of the Philadelphia Athletics. He played for the team long after Jimmie Foxx had retired, but he was a fine player in his own right, and we are extremely fortunate to have him here today with us, a genuine living member of the Philadelphia Athletics. I'm proud to introduce Mr. Forrest Spook Jacobs. I'd like to recognize members of the Foxx family at this point in the proceedings. First of all, I'm sure most of you know her by now. If you don't, shame on you. I'm delighted to introduce Jimmie Foxx's daughter, Nancy Foxx Canaday. Other members of the Foxx family, and I'll ask you to stand as I read your names, if you would please. Mrs. Kenneth Foxx. William Foxx. Taylor Foxx. Alex Foxx. Beth Foxx. Andrew Foxx. Dell and Nancy Foxx. Mark, Katie, and Jason Foxx. And David Foxx. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Mark Milliken is a baseball historian, and he is a prolific writer. He has chronicled the history of baseball, which makes him special and makes his work everlasting. A particular book that he wrote a few years back, The Pride of Sudlersville, is about Jimmie Foxx and his life and career. And here with us today to talk about his book and to highlight it for us in discussing the career of Jimmie Foxx, I'm pleased to introduce Mark Milliken.
Thank you, Bob. I'm honored to be with all of you today, taking part in this celebration of the life of Jimmie Foxx, the man and the athlete, especially regarding his baseball achievements. Because I decided to research Mr. Foxx's life and write a biography about him, I've met a whole host of wonderful people who knew him. The project has enriched my life. Sudlersville's librarian, Barbara Everett, told me when I completed the biography about Foxx, "You're part of Sudlersville now." She was right, especially today. So what was Jimmie Foxx like? He was handsome, with blue eyes and an infectious grin. His parents taught him the basics of decency. Do your best, consideration of others, honesty, be agreeable, and it showed, recalled his cousin Matty Anthony, who's in the audience today. We're glad you're here, Matty. He never walked by without saying hello, recalled pitcher Jimmy DeShong. He was a good fella, around everybody, always in a good mood, recalled Bosie Berger. Foxx never argued with umpires. John Brule, Queen Anne's County's athletic director in the 1920s, taught Jimmy never to argue with the umpires. Just go sit on a base until the rhubarb and the argument is over. And Jim did just that. Recalled John's son, Paul Brule, in a letter to me. Winnie Coleman, Foxx's cousin, and Bernard Merrick, Jim's high school teammate, verified this fact in separate interviews with me without ever hearing Paul Brule's story of how his father influenced Foxx, so I believe the story. When Foxx first arrived on the Major League Baseball scene, he was a bit shy, even withdrawn. But remember, he wasn't quite 17 when he warmed the bench with Connie Mack in mid and late September 1924 and played in a few exhibition games. By the time he was 21, at the beginning of the 1929 season, he was brimming with enthusiasm. Foxx's ready smile and his tendency to tease his teammates made players want to be around him. They admired his overall play, his home run slugging, and his performance in the clutch. He wasn't given to bragging and didn't have the swagger of Babe Ruth, but he resonated with enthusiasm and positive attitude. He displayed no outward displeasure when Connie Mack managed the American League All-Stars in 1933, but never used Foxx in the game. Lou Gehrig played the entire game at first base, and Jimmie never even appeared as a pinch hitter. Remember, Foxx was the American League MVP in 1932 and was on his way to another AL MVP award in 1933. But that was Foxx's style. He didn't complain. Jimmie liked to cut his uniform sleeves short so as to show off his biceps and swing more freely. He was a flashy dresser. Foxx was very gregarious and much preferred socializing in place of sitting in his room. He loved people and loved athletic competition, especially baseball. He was an avid hunter of small game on the shore, enjoyed fishing, and played golf often. He had a heart that knew no bounds. Generous, that was Jimmie Foxx. The clubhouse errand boys received their biggest tips from Jimmie. He treated teammates to dinner and drinks. Rookies, he was often a rookie's best friend among the veterans on the team. And Jim took a special interest in players from Maryland. Bosie Berger, who starred in basketball and baseball at the University of Maryland, told me that Foxx took a special interest in him when he came up to play with the Cleveland Indians. Foxx didn't like the looks of Berger's bats for one reason or another and gave Bosie several of his own. Although not known for slugging home runs, Berger recalled, I hit a few homers with those bats. Former St. Louis Browns third baseman Harlan Clift gushed, Jimmie Foxx was one of my personal friends. I loved him as a great ball player. Every ball player admired Jimmie Foxx. Former Indians hurler Mel Harder recalled, Jimmie Foxx had a fine disposition. He took things in stride. Former pitching opponent Vern Kennedy said, I consider Jimmie one of my personal friends, and I don't think he had an enemy anyplace at that time. Pitcher Harry Eisenstadt said he was very pleasant, especially to youngsters. Now, Jimmie Foxx learned much about how to play baseball on various fields in and around here in Sudlersville, especially from his father, Dell. Dell intended that his son would be a major league catcher, and by the time Jimmie was 13, he was playing town ball for a team managed by his uncle, Olin Smith. Baseball fever in the form of town baseball was rampant on the Eastern Shore back then, and Jimmie Foxx stood out beginning when he was a young teenager. Jim's dad had been a star player in town baseball, and many fans believed he could have made it as a major leaguer had he tried. As a young teenager, Jim was called the Sudlersville Flash for his speed in the 80-yard and 100-yard dashes. Then he was called the Sudlersville Slugger for his tremendous power hitting. By the late 1920s, as a young major leaguer for the Philadelphia A's, some sports scribes were calling him the next Babe Ruth. In the early 1930s, he was called the Maryland Broadback and the Maryland Strong Boy. The Maryland Broadback, in this case, by sports writer Jimmy Eisenminger. And the right-handed Babe Ruth by many sports writers. Ruth owned the record for the longest home runs by a left-handed batter, and Foxx had the record for the longest home runs by a right-handed batter in most American League ballparks. Later, Foxx was called Double X for his last name, and the Beast for his menacing look at the plate. Jimmie Foxx developed a fan base around the Eastern Shore when he led the Queen Anne's County High School Baseball All-Stars against larger high schools and freshman college teams throughout the state of Maryland in 1923. Foxx was not quite 16, yet he was the best player on the team that won more games than it lost against boys 2 and 3 years older than him. His winning ways at the state annual high school track and field Olympiad in Baltimore gained him more recognition statewide. When Foxx started catcher for Frank Home Run Baker's Easton minor league team in 1924, Foxx solidified a large following of Eastern Shore baseball fans. The fact that Philadelphia's Connie Mack purchased Jimmie's contract from Baker made it easy for Foxx's fans to watch Jim's progress at the major league level firsthand. Many of them, including friends and family, traveled to Philadelphia's Shibe Park regularly from 1928 especially through 1935. Del Foxx made the trip often, taking several town folks at a time. Del was Jimmie's staunchest supporter. Foxx made Eastern Shore fans proud when he became Connie Mack's regular first baseman and was batting .400 as late as July 12th and appeared on the cover of Time magazine on July 29, 1929. Imagine, the cover of a national magazine other than a sports magazine. Not even Babe Ruth ever appeared on Time magazine's cover. Foxx's popularity was helped further because Connie Mack's 1929 and 1930 and 31 teams were some of the best ever in the major leagues. Those A's teams eclipsed Babe